Most men think a trophy wife is just decoration, something to look pretty and stay silent while the adults talk business. My husband, the ruthless Kong Taos, made that mistake for 3 years. He saw the silk dress and the hydrangeas. He didn't see the calculation in my eyes, or the fact that I was the only person at the dinner table who knew he was about to die. They thought I was decorative. They thought I was simple. They didn't know that before I was Mrs. Kong, the silent housewife, I was Dr. Courtney, a forensic toxicologist with an IQ that terrified my professors. They didn't know that while I sat there, cutting my steak into perfect, bite-sized geometric shapes, I wasn't thinking about flower arrangements. I was calculating the refraction index of the wine in my husband's glass. The 2015 Bordeaux, an impeccable vintage. It should have been a deep, opaque ruby, absorbing the light like a black hole. But it wasn't. Under the crystal chandelier of the Meridian Steakhouse's private room, the liquid in Kong Taos's glass had a faint, iridescent shimmer, a greenish hue that only appeared if the light hit it at a 45-degree angle. To a layman, it was a trick of the light. To a sommelier, it might be sediment. To me, it was Aconitum napellus, monkshood, wolfsbane, specifically, a synthesized concentrate that attacks the cardiac rhythm within 3 minutes of ingestion. I watched Taos's hand move toward the stem of the glass. His hand was steady. Beautiful, actually. Taos was a man carved from marble and indifference. He was looking at his phone, scrolling through shipping manifests, ignoring me, ignoring his mother, Madame Yeo Jean, and ignoring his brother, Jae-hwan. He was the deaf king, the man who heard nothing but the hum of his own power. He didn't see the sweat beading on Jae-hwan's upper lip. He didn't see the way the waiter's hand had trembled when he poured the bottle. He didn't see me. He hadn't seen me in 3 years. I had 3 seconds. In my head, the formula for the antidote flashed like a neon sign. Atropine, support fluids, charcoal. But I didn't have a lab. I had a dinner fork and a choice. Option A: scream, knock the glass over. B: the hysterical wife who ruined a business dinner. Taos would look at me with that cold, tired disappointment he reserved for my existence. He wouldn't believe me. He'd check the wine, find nothing obvious because the synthesis was sophisticated, and I'd be shipped off to a wellness retreat for my nerves. Option B: let him drink it. Let the man who forgot our anniversary, forgot my birthday, and forgot that I was a human being take a sip. Let him die. Inherit the empire. Run it better than he ever did. It was a tempting thought. Darkly, deliciously tempting. But then I looked at his eyes. Dark, exhausted, lonely eyes that he hid from the world. And I remembered the man who had once learned to braid my hair, even though his hands were too big and clumsy for the task. Option C. The nuclear option. Taos, I said. My voice was soft, the voice of the dutiful wife. He didn't look up. Not now, Imelda. I'm reading the Busan report. It's about the wine. I pressed, keeping my tone light, airy. I think it's corked. It's a $2,000 bottle, he muttered, still scrolling. It's not corked. His fingers touched the glass. 2 seconds. I didn't panic. Panic is for people who don't understand chemistry. I reached across the 18 inches, the canyon between us, and placed my hand over his. His skin was cool. Mine was burning. For the first time all night, he stopped. He looked up, his brows knitting together in irritation. Imelda, what are you doing? I want to taste it first, I said, offering him a smile that didn't reach my eyes, a smile that was all teeth and secrets. You know I have a better palate than you. If it's bad, I don't want you to ruin your mood. It's fine, he snapped, trying to pull the glass away. Humor me, I purred. And before he could stop me, before Jae-hwan could choke on his panic, I lifted the glass. I didn't just sip it. I locked eyes with Jae-hwan, the traitor, the brother who had always smiled too much, and I toasted him. A silent, terrifying salute. I saw his pupils dilate. He knew that I knew. I downed half the glass in one swallow. The taste hit me instantly. Metallic. bitter, like licking a battery wrapped in velvet. See, I set the glass down with a delicate clink. It has notes of betrayal. What are you talking about? Toas asked, wiping his hand on his napkin, finally looking at me. Really looking at me. Imelda, you're acting strange. Am I? I felt the first kick in my chest. Arrhythmia. My heart skipped a beat, then fluttered like a trapped bird. The neurotoxin was fast. Faster than I calculated. Good synthesis. Jae-hwan must have hired the Russians. Maybe I'm just tired of being part of the furniture, darling. Imelda? His voice changed. The irritation vanished, replaced by a flicker of confusion. My fingertips went numb. That was the paresthesia setting in. I had about 60 seconds of consciousness left. I needed to make them count. I needed to traumatize him enough that he would never, ever look past me again. Teos, I said, my voice dropping an octave, losing the soft wife persona and finding the steel of Dr. Courtney. Listen to me very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. The room started to tilt. The chandelier fractured into a kaleidoscope of diamonds. What is it? What's wrong? He stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. The wine? I whispered, pressing a hand to my chest as the fire spread through my veins. It was laced with aconite. Lethal dose. I'd say 40 milligrams. What? I drank it for you, I said, swaying. He caught me. His arms were strong, rigid with shock. Because unlike you, I pay attention. As my knees gave out and Teos hauled me against his chest, shouting for help, I grabbed his lapel. I didn't just faint. I pulled him close, my lips brushing his ear, and I whispered the secret I had kept for 6 months. The antidote is in my purse, I gasped, my vision tunneling to black. Small red vial. I synthesized it last week. I knew they were coming for you, Teos. I've known for months. His eyes went wide. Shock, pure and absolute, shattered his icy mask. I hadn't just saved him. I had anticipated his murder when he hadn't even noticed a threat. I had been playing 4D chess while he was playing checkers. Imelda! He screamed my name. It was the loudest sound I'd ever heard him make. Don't trust the brother, I managed to choke out, and then I let the darkness take me. My final thought was a smug satisfaction. Let's see you ignore this, you arrogant idiot. Before we find out if the antidote works, or if Imelda's gamble costs her everything, I need you to do something for me. Smash that subscribe button like it owes you money, like this video, and share it with a friend who loves a powerful woman. Comment below. Would you drink the poison? Let's get back to the chaos. The chaos wasn't immediate. It was a slow-motion car crash. Toas stared at the woman in his arms. Imelda. His Imelda. The woman he thought spent her days shopping for curtains and organizing playdates for the twins, Junesio and Yuna. She was limp, her skin turning a terrifying shade of gray, her breathing shallow and ragged. The antidote is in my purse. Her words echoed in his skull like a gunshot. He didn't think. Instinct, honed by years of violence, took over. He ripped her clutch purse open, dumping the contents onto the pristine white tablecloth. Lipstick, tissues, a gold card, and there, rolling among the debris, was a small, unlabeled glass vial with a red rubber stopper. Call Dr. Lim, Toas roared, his voice cracking. Now, tell him it's aconite. He didn't look at his family. He didn't look at the waiters. He popped the cork with his teeth and tilted Imelda's head back. Come on, he pleaded, his hands shaking. Actually shaking. The deaf king never shook. He poured the liquid under her tongue, praying she still had a swallow reflex. Don't you do this. Don't you dare leave me with this mess. She didn't move. Across the table, Jae-hwan stood up, his face a mask of faux concern. Brother, maybe we should. If you speak, Teos said, his voice dropping to a register that sounded like grinding tectonic plates. I will cut your tongue out right here. He didn't look up. He kept his fingers on Imelda's neck, searching for a pulse. It was thready, fluttering, dying. Madame Eugene sat frozen. She was a woman who had seen assassinations, raids, and betrayals. But she had never seen this. She watched her son, the Ice Prince, cradling his wife like she was the only source of heat in the universe. And she watched the simple daughter-in-law reveal a level of strategic foresight that eclipsed everyone in the room. She knew, Eugene whispered to herself. She knew for months. The ambulance ride was a blur of lights and sirens. But for Teos, the world had narrowed down to the rhythmic beep of the cardiac monitor. Beep, beep, beep. It was too slow. He held her hand. Felt small. When was the last time he had held her hand? He tried to remember. The charity gala last winter? No, he had walked 3 steps ahead of her. The twins' birthday? No, he had been on a call. Guilt didn't wash over him. It drowned him. It wasn't just that she had saved him. It was the specific cruelty of her final words. I've known for months. She had been watching, analyzing, protecting him from the shadows, while he treated her like a background extra in the movie of his life. She wasn't just a victim. She was a mastermind, and he had been too blind to see it. The hospital was a fortress. The entire north wing of the Asen Medical Center was locked down. Guards with earpieces patrolled every corridor. Inside the VIP suite, machines hummed and clicked, breathing for Imelda. It had been 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of Teos sitting in a hard plastic chair, refusing to leave, refusing to shower, refusing to run his empire. He stared at her face. Without the makeup, without the perfect socialite blowout, she looked younger. She looked fierce. Mr. Kong, Dr. Lim said, entering the room softly. Her vitals are stabilizing. The antidote, it was remarkable. Crude, but chemically perfect. If she hadn't taken it within seconds, she would be dead. Did you say she synthesized it herself? That's what she said. Teos rasped. His throat felt like he had swallowed glass. I wasn't aware Mrs. Kong had a background in chemistry. Neither was I, Teos admitted. And that was the tragedy of it. He didn't know his own wife. On the 4th morning, the sun hit the white sheets, and Imelda Courtney opened her eyes. She didn't gasp. She didn't flutter her lashes. She opened them instantly, alert, scanning the room. Assessment, calculation, survival. Her eyes landed on Teos. He looked like a wreck. Stubble on his jaw, shirt wrinkled, tie gone. He looked human. You look terrible, she croaked. Her voice was rough, dry. Teos surged forward, grabbing the bed rail. Imelda, you're awake. Obviously. She tried to sit up, but groaned. My chest feels like a horse kicked it. You drank poison, he said, the words sounding absurd as he said them. You drank aconite. For me. Don't let it go to your head, she muttered, reaching for the water on the bedside table. He beat her to it, holding the straw to her lips. She took a sip, watching him over the rim of the cup. I just didn't want the twins to have a funeral on a school night. It messes with their routine. Stop it, he said, pulling the cup away. Stop deflecting. You almost died. And you almost let your brother kill you because you were too busy reading a shipping manifest to notice he was sweating like a pig in a sauna. She leaned back against the pillows, her gaze sharpening. Did you handle it? Handle what? Jay Huan, she said, the name dripping with disdain. Don't tell me you let him walk away. Teos stiffened. He's in custody. Family custody. I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do with him. Imelda let out a short, dry laugh. Oh, now you want my opinion? Last week you wouldn't let me choose the appetizer, and now you want me to decide the fate of a traitor. Imelda, save it. She cut him off. I don't want your guilt, Teos. It's boring. And I don't want your gratitude. It's fleeting. Then what do you want? He asked, desperate. Name it. Anything. A villain? A private island? I'll buy you a country if that's what you want. She looked at him, her dark eyes searching his face. She saw the fear there, the fear of losing her. It was a start. I want a seat at the table, she said clearly. What? The business, she said. I'm done being the housewife. I'm done hiding. I knew about the hit because I've been hacking your server logs for 2 years. TOS. Your encryption is garbage, by the way. I fixed your ledger last month when your accountant tried to embezzle 3 million in crypto. I routed it back before you even noticed it was gone. Toa stared at her, his mouth slightly open. You hacked my servers? Someone had to. She shrugged. You were too busy being the king to notice your kingdom was leaking. So here's the deal. I live. I stay. But I'm not Mrs. Kong, the trophy, anymore. I'm your partner. Equal say. Full access. And no more secrets. She extended a hand, weak but steady. Deal? Toes looked at her hand. He realized, with a jolt of terrifying clarity, that he wasn't looking at a damsel he had saved. He was looking at a dragon that had been sleeping in his bed. And for the first time in years, he felt something other than duty. He felt awe. He took her hand. Deal. Good. She closed her eyes, exhausted again. Now go shower. You smell like regret and stale coffee. The recovery wasn't a montage of flowers and chocolates. It was a war of attrition. I was released a week later. The house, our sprawling, modern mansion in Buckhead, felt different. The staff walked on eggshells. The twins, Junesio and Yuna, hovered around me like little frantic satellites. Junesio, my serious 6-year-old protector, wouldn't let go of my leg. Daddy said you ate bad grapes, he said suspiciously, his eyes narrowing. I told him grapes don't make you sleep for a week. Daddy is a terrible liar. I told him, smoothing his hair. It was very bad grapes. But Mommy is fine now. I made you a shield, Yuna said, presenting me with a piece of cardboard covered in glitter and macaroni. So the grapes can't get you. It's perfect, I said, kissing her cheek. I'll wear it everywhere. Teos stood in the doorway watching us. He was wearing an apron, a literal apron. It said "Kiss the Cook" on it. It was so jarring I almost called the police. I made porridge, he announced, looking more terrified than he had during the cartel wars of 2024. You cooked. I raised an eyebrow. Is it poisoned? He winced. Too soon. It's never too soon for accuracy, I said, standing up. My legs were still a bit shaky, but I refused to show it. I walked to the kitchen. The porridge was gray. It looked like wet cement. It's abalone porridge, he explained quickly. Mother sent the recipe. Your mother sent you a recipe for concrete? I took a spoon, tasted a tiny bit. It was bland, slightly burnt, and had the texture of sand. It was the worst thing I'd ever eaten. I looked at him. He was waiting for a verdict, clutching the ladle like a weapon. It's edible, I lied. Barely. I'll get better, he promised. And the way he said it, intense, focused, made my breath hitch. He wasn't talking about the porridge. We have a meeting in an hour, I said, switching gears. If I'm a partner, I need to be briefed on the Jaehwan situation and the Russians who supplied the poison. Imelda, you just got out of the hospital. You should rest. I rested for 4 days in a coma. I'm bored. I walked past him, grabbing an apple. Meet me in the study and take off the apron. It's confusing my libido. I left him standing in the kitchen, stunned. I allowed myself a small smirk. Underdog mastery. Phase 1. Complete. I had his attention. Now I had to keep it. But as we headed into the study, the next shock was waiting for us behind the mahogany doors. I walked into the study, expecting to see the usual suspects. Teos's lieutenants, grim-faced and silent. Instead, sitting in Teos's leather chair, spinning a pen between her fingers, was Madame Yojin. She didn't look up when I entered. You're late. I live here, I said, crossing my arms. And that's my husband's chair. It's my son's chair, she corrected, finally looking at me. Her gaze was sharp, dissecting. But since he seems incapable of protecting his own glass, perhaps it's time for a change in management. Teos walked in behind me. Mother, what are you doing here? I'm here to tell you that you're both idiots, she said calmly. She slapped a folder onto the desk. Jaehwan didn't act alone, and he didn't buy the poison from the Russians. I stepped forward, frowning. The chemical signature was distinct. It was synthesized aconite. The Volkov Syndicate is the only one in the region with a lab capable of that purity. Wrong, Eugene said. She looked at me, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of respect in her eyes. Or maybe it was a challenge. The poison came from inside the house. What? Teos asked. Not our house, Eugene clarified. The Courtney house. The room stopped. The air left my lungs. My family, I whispered. My parents are dead. I have no family. You have a sister, Eugene said. Vanessa, the one you told us died in a car crash 5 years ago. I froze. My blood ran cold. Vanessa is dead, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I identified the body. Did you? Eugene opened the folder. She slid a photograph across the desk. It was grainy, taken from a surveillance camera. A woman walking into a warehouse in the shipping district. She was wearing a trench coat, but the face was unmistakable. Same eyes, same nose, but where my face was soft, hers was scarred. Hard. She's alive, Eugene said. And she's the head of the rival faction trying to take our territory. She didn't just sell the poison to Jaehwan. She designed it. Specifically for you, Imelda. My dead sister wasn't dead. She was the villain. And she hadn't tried to kill Teos. The poison wasn't meant for him. Jaehwan confessed an hour ago, Eugene said ruthlessly. He said the seller gave him a discount if he ensured you drank it. The target wasn't the king. It was the queen. I grabbed the desk to steady myself. All this time I thought I was the genius. I thought I was the one playing 4D chess. But someone else was playing the game, and she knew my every move because she shared my DNA. Teos stepped closer to me, his body radiating a sudden, terrifying heat. The protective powerhouse was waking up. Who is she? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. I looked at the photo. I looked at the sister I had mourned, the sister whose death had been the reason I left forensics and hid in this marriage. She's the reason I learned to make antidotes, I whispered. She's not just a rival, Teos. She's a monster, and she doesn't want your territory. I looked up at him, tears of rage stinging my eyes. She wants my life. She wants my life, I repeated, the words tasting like ash. And if she's truly alive, Teos, she doesn't just want to kill me. She wants to prove she's better than me first. That was always Vanessa's game. She doesn't just checkmate you. She burns the board. Teos didn't move. He stood there, a statue of controlled violence, radiating a heat that made the air in the study feel thin. Explain, he said. One word. Command. But his eyes were pleading for a reason not to burn the city down. Vanessa wasn't just my sister. I began, walking over to the window, looking out at the manicured grounds where our children were playing, oblivious to the fact that their aunt was a ghost coming to haunt us. She was a prodigy, better than me in organic chemistry. We were competitive. It started with grades, then scholarships, then ethics. I went into forensics to solve crimes. She went into pharmaceuticals to create experiences. Drugs, Madame Eugene supplied, her voice dry. She makes designer narcotics. Worse, I turned back to them. She synthesizes fear, hallucinogens that target the amygdala. She was expelled from our PhD program for testing on human subjects without consent. She spiraled, got involved with a cartel in Miami. I tried to pull her out. 5 years ago, she called me, said she was clean, said she wanted to meet. I drove to the meetup spot. Her car was there. It went off the bridge. The police found a body. Dental records matched. I thought I buried her. She faked it, Teos said, his jaw tightening. She faked her death to go underground. And to get away from me, I said, because I was the only one who could identify her work. That poison in your glass, Teos, that wasn't just aconite. It was modified, delayed onset, cleaner solubility. It was her signature. She didn't want to kill you. She wanted me to watch you die, knowing I could have saved you if I'd been faster. She wanted to break me. Teos walked over to me. He didn't ask for permission. He stepped into my space, his large hands cupping my face, forcing me to look at him. She missed. He growled low in his throat. She missed. And now she has my attention. No one threatens my wife. No one. She's not just a threat, Teos, I whispered, leaning into his touch despite myself. God, he felt safe, like a fortress. She's a genius, and she knows everything about me. She knows my patterns. She knows I'm right-handed. She knows I'm allergic to strawberries. She probably knows the layout of this house better than you do. Then we changed the layout, he said firmly. We changed the game. How? We stopped playing defense, Teos said, his eyes darkening. You said you want a seat at the table? Fine. You're sitting at the head. You know her. You know how she thinks. You tell me how to catch her. I looked at him. I looked at Madame Eugene, who gave me a single, sharp nod. The underdog was no longer under. I was the captain now. Okay, I said, my voice steadying. If we want to catch Vanessa, we have to give her what she wants. And what is that? Me, I said. We use me as bait. Teos dropped his hands. Absolutely not. It's the only way, I argued. She's arrogant. If she thinks I'm vulnerable, she'll come out of the shadows to finish the job. The autumn gala is in 2 days. It's the biggest event of the season. High security, public, the perfect stage for her to make a statement. I attend. I wear the biggest diamonds you own. I look happy. I look alive. It will drive her insane. It's too dangerous. Teos paced the room. I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything. Kong Teos, I snapped. I'm your partner, remember? Partners take risks. I walked up to him, poking him in the chest. Besides, I won't be alone. I'll have the Deaf King watching my back. Unless you don't think you can handle it? He stopped pacing. He looked down at me, a mixture of frustration and intense desire burning in his eyes. You play dirty, Mrs. Kong. I learned from the best. I smirked. So, are we doing this? He sighed, defeated. We're doing it, but on my terms. You wear a wire. You have 4 shadows. And if I see anything that looks like a threat, I burn the building down. Clear? Crystal. Good. He turned to his mother. Mother, double the guard on the children. No one in, no one out. Already done, Eugene said, standing up. I'll handle the home front. You two handle the witch. As she left, Teos turned back to me. The business mask slipped, just for a second. Imelda, if anything happens to you, it won't, I promised. Because for the first time in 6 years, I'm not fighting alone. Before we dive into the gala, and trust me, the dress I picked out is a weapon of mass destruction. I need you to pause. Yes, you. If you're loving this power couple dynamic, please hit that like button to help us defeat the algorithm and Vanessa. And comment below. What's your superpower? Is it cooking, strategy, or just surviving? Let me know. Now let's get dressed to kill. The next 48 hours were a blur of tactical preparation and domestic chaos. If I was going to be bait, I had to look the part. But I also had to make sure my house was in order. That meant fixing Teos's abysmal security protocols. Password 123? I asked, staring at his laptop screen in the safe room. Teos, are you serious? The leader of the Kong Syndicate uses password 123 for his firewall. It's easy to remember, he defended, looking up from cleaning his gun. It's easy to hack. I corrected, typing furiously. I'm changing it, and I'm installing a biometric lock on the server room. Also, your accountant, Mr. Kim, he's skimming off the top. Not much, just rounding errors, but it adds up to 50 grand a month. TOS stopped cleaning his gun. Kim? He's been with us for 20 years. Loyalty has an expiration date, I said without looking up. Check his offshore accounts in the Caymans. I just sent you the routing numbers. TOS checked his phone. His eyes widened. How did you? I told you. I smiled sweetly. I pay attention. Fire him. Or, handle it. I love you, he blurted out. I froze. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. We didn't say that. We said pass the salt, or the twins need braces. We didn't say I love you. He looked shocked that he'd said it. His ears turned a faint shade of pink. I mean, I love your efficiency. It's productive. I felt a warmth spread through my chest that had nothing to do with adrenaline. Nice save, tough guy. I love your gun cleaning skills. Very shiny. We stared at each other for a beat too long, the air charging with electricity. Then the door banged open. Mommy! Daddy! June SEO ran in, wearing a superhero cape and wielding a plastic sword. Eunice says girls are stronger than boys because they have more pain-tolerant tolerance. Una marched in behind him, holding a book. It's science, June SEO. Women give birth. Men cry when they get a flu. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. TOS looked at his son, then at his daughter. She's right, son, TOS said solemnly. Never argue with a woman who has a book. That's lesson number 1. What's lesson number 2? June SEO asked. TOS looked at me. Protect her, even when she's smarter than you. Especially then. My heart did a traitorous little flip. The night of the gala arrived. The venue was the Atlanta History Center, a sprawling estate of marble and old money. I wore emerald green, silk, backless with a slit that went up to my hip. It was a dress designed to distract. Around my neck hung the Kong family emeralds, heavy, ancient, and worth more than the building we were standing in. But the real accessory was the man on my arm. TOS was in a tuxedo that fit him like a second skin. He had groomed the stubble, slicked back the hair. He looked like James Bond's more dangerous cousin. His hand rested on the small of my back, his thumb tracing the curve of my spine. It wasn't just possessive. It was grounding. Remember, he whispered as we stepped onto the red carpet, cameras flashing blindingly. Stay in my line of sight. If I say move, you move. Yes, sir, I teased. I'm serious, Imelda. I know. I squeezed his hand. I'm ready. We entered the ballroom. It was a sea of elites, politicians, business tycoons, and the polite society of Atlanta, half of whom were on TOS's payroll. I smiled, nodded, played the part of the recovering victim. Mrs. Kong, a socialite named Beatrice, fluttered over. My goodness, we heard about the food poisoning. You look radiant. You simply must tell me your detox secret. Arsenic and old lace, Beatrice. I smiled. Keeps the complexion clear. TOS choked on his champagne. Beatrice laughed, thinking it was a joke. She's delightful, Beatrice cooed. TOS, you've been hiding her personality. I'm learning not to, TOS said, his eyes scanning the room over her shoulder. Excuse us, Beatrice. We have to greet the senator. He steered me away. Arsenic. She wouldn't know a joke if it bit her, I muttered. Any sign of her? Not yet, TOS murmured into his comms. Perimeter is clear. Facial rec is running. Nothing. That was the problem. Vanessa wouldn't walk in the front door. She was a ghost. Dance with me, I said. What? We're too static. We need to move. It makes us harder targets and gives us a better view of the room. TOS hesitated, then led me to the dance floor. The orchestra was playing a waltz. He pulled me close, too close for a waltz, chest to chest. You're trembling, he noted. I'm terrified, I admitted, looking up at him. What if I'm wrong? What if she doesn't come? What if she goes after the kids instead? The house is a fortress, he assured me. Mother is there. Nothing gets past Eugene. He spun me. The world blurred. For a moment it was just us. The smell of his cologne, sandalwood, and gun oil. The heat of his hand. You know, he said quietly, I never liked these events. I always felt alone in the crowd. You ignored me at these events, I reminded him. I know. I was an idiot. But tonight, he tightened his grip. Tonight I feel like I own the room. Because you're next to me. Don't get mushy on me, boss, I whispered, blinking back tears. We have a villain to catch, right? The music swelled. And then the lights went out. Not a flicker. Total blackout. The crowd gasped. Screams rippled through the darkness. Stay close, Toas hissed, his arm clamping around my waist like a vice. I heard the click of his safety coming off. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice boomed over the speakers. Distorted. Digital. Please remain calm. We are experiencing a minor technical difficulty. It wasn't the venue staff. I knew that cadence. I knew that mockery. It's her, I whispered. She's hacked the audio. Spotlights slammed on. But not on the stage. On us. A single, blinding white beam pinned Teos and me in the center of the dance floor. We were exposed. Naked in the light. Hello, sister. The voice purred. You look healthy. I'm disappointed. The crowd went silent. They thought it was a performance. Part of the show. Show yourself, Vanessa, I shouted into the light. Oh, I'm here. The voice laughed. But I'm not the one you should be worried about. A projector screen descended from the ceiling behind the stage. It flickered to life. It wasn't a live feed of Vanessa. It was a live feed of our home. My heart stopped. The camera panned through the living room. Overturned furniture. A shattered vase. And there, tied to a chair in the center of the room, was Madame Eugene. She looked battered, a bruise forming on her cheek, but her eyes were furious. And behind her, holding a gun to her head, wasn't Vanessa. It was Dr. Lim, the family doctor, the man who had saved my life, the man who had delivered our children. Surprise, sister, Vanessa's voice crooned. You were looking for a stranger, Imelda. But you should have checked the payroll. The antidote you took? It wasn't just an antidote. It was a tracker. Dr. Lim injected you with a microisotope when you were unconscious. I know exactly where you are. I know exactly where your heart rate is. Teos let out a sound that wasn't human. It was a roar of pure, primal rage. Lim, I will skin you alive. Tut tut, brother-in-law, Vanessa mocked. If you leave the gala, Dr. Lim pulls the trigger. If you call the police, Dr. Lim pulls the trigger. If you do anything other than what I say, Grandma goes bye-bye. Where are the children? I screamed, panic clawing at my throat. Where are June SEO and Yuna? The camera panned left. The children weren't there. That's the interesting part, Vanessa mused. They seem to be missing. Your mother-in-law hid them well before we breached the perimeter. But we'll find them. It's a big house, but I have time. What do you want? Toes demanded, his body shielding mine, though it was useless against a screen. I want Imelda, Vanessa said. Alone. On the roof. 5 minutes. If anyone follows her, if I see one guard, the matriarch dies. And then we start hunting the twins. The screen went black. The lights came back on. The crowd applauded. They thought it was a skit, a murder mystery dinner theater. Bravo! Someone shouted. I looked at Teos. He was pale, his eyes wide with horror. You're not going up there. I have to, I said, kicking off my heels. She has your mother. She's hunting our children. It's a trap, Imelda. She'll kill you the moment you step out that door. She wants to beat me? I said, hiking up my dress. She won't shoot me on sight. She'll want to gloat first. That gives me time. Time for what? Time for you to get to the house. I grabbed his lapels. Go. Save the kids. Save your mother. Leave Vanessa to me. I can't leave you. You have to. I slapped his chest. You are the protective powerhouse, TOS. Go protect our family. I'm the genius. Let me be the genius. He stared at me, torn. Agony was written in every line of his face. He kissed me. Hard, desperate. A kiss that tasted like goodbye. If you die, he whispered against my lips, I will burn this world to ash. Go! Pushed him away. He turned and sprinted toward the service exit, speaking rapidly into his comms, mobilizing his army. I turned toward the elevators. I hit the button for the roof. I was barefoot. I was unarmed. I was walking into a trap set by a psychopath who knew my every move. But Vanessa had forgotten one thing. She knew Imelda the sister. She knew Imelda the forensic scientist. She didn't know Imelda the mother. And she definitely didn't know about the hairpin I was wearing. I reached up, pulling the long, sharp titanium pin from my chignon. My hair tumbled down around my shoulders. The pin was 6 inches long, sharpened to a needle point, dipped in a paralytic agent I had synthesized in the bathroom before we left. Just in case. Come and get me, sister. I whispered as the elevator doors dinged open to the cool night air. The roof was windy. Helicopters buzzed in the distance. And there she was, Vanessa. She was wearing a white suit, pristine, the opposite of my black and green. She held a gun loosely in her hand, leaning against the ledge. You're late, she smiled. It was my smile, distorted. Did you stop to fix your makeup? I stopped to say goodbye to my husband, I said, walking forward slowly. Husband, she scoffed. Please, he's a thug in a tuxedo. You always aimed so low, Amy. You could have been a CEO, a revolutionary. Instead, you became a breeder for a gangster. I became happy, I said. Something you never figured out how to do. Happiness is a chemical reaction, she spat. It's dopamine and oxytocin. It's temporary. Power is permanent. She raised the gun. Kneel. I didn't kneel. I said kneel. She fired a shot. It hit the concrete inches from my foot. You won't kill me yet, I said calmly, taking another step. You want to know how I survived the car crash, don't you? You want to know how I synthesized the antidote so fast. You're curious. She lowered the gun slightly. How did you know it was aconite? Because I took another step. I know you. You're predictable, Nessie. You always liked the classics. Predictable. Her eyes flashed with rage. I brought down the Kong security grid in 10 minutes. I turned their own doctor against them. I am a god. You're a lonely girl with a chemistry set, I said, now 10 feet away. And you made a mistake. What mistake? You threatened my kids. I lunged. It wasn't a martial arts move. It was pure, maternal rage. I tackled her. The gun skittered across the gravel. We rolled. She was strong, wiry, screaming like a banshee. She clawed at my face. I didn't feel it. I jammed my forearm against her throat. She bucked, throwing me off. We scrambled up. She pulled a knife from her boot. I'm going to carve you up, Imelda. She swiped. I dodged. The blade caught my silk sleeve, slicing the fabric. You're soft, she screamed, lunging again. Domesticated. I waited. I watched her center of gravity. Underdog mastery isn't about being stronger. It's about being smarter. She thrust. I sidestepped, caught her wrist, and used her own momentum to slam her into the HVAC unit. She gasped, the air leaving her lungs. I didn't hesitate. I drove the titanium hairpin into her shoulder, right into the trapezius muscle. She screamed, and then she froze. The paralytic, fast-acting, localized but potent. Her arm went dead. The knife clattered to the floor. I kicked it away. Domesticated? I panted, standing over her as she slumped to the ground, clutching her numb arm. Means I have something to fight for. But before I could finish her, before I could zip-tie her and drag her downstairs, my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. I looked at it. It was a picture. Not of the house. Not of the gala. It was a picture of Teos's car. Flipping over on the highway. Engulfed in flames. The text read, "You thought Dr. Lim was the only traitor? The driver is ours too." I dropped the phone. Vanessa started laughing. A high, wheezing laugh. "Checkmate, sister. You saved the queen, but you just lost the king." I screamed, a sound that tore my throat apart. "Teos, before we find out if the protective powerhouse survived the fire, I need you to do one thing. If your jaw is on the floor, smash that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with your group chat because nobody should suffer this cliffhanger alone. We are just getting started." I stared at the phone on the gravel. The image of the burning car burned into my retinas. The twisted metal. The roaring flames. It looked like a funeral pyre. Vanessa laughed again. A sound that grated against the wind. "He's gone, Amy. You're a widow. Again." My knees hit the concrete. The grief was a physical blow, a sledgehammer to the chest. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. But then, the scientist in me, the part of my brain that Imelda the grieving wife couldn't silence, zoomed in. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking, but my eyes were surgical. I looked at the burning wreckage. The car was a Mercedes G-Wagon. Black, armored, just like Teos's. But the rims. I squinted. The rims in the photo were standard stock alloy. Teos was obsessive about his cars. He had custom matte black rims installed on every vehicle in the fleet last month. He said the stock ones looked pedestrian. And the fire. The smoke was white. Gasoline burns black. White smoke meant steam or an electrical fire. "You're lying," I whispered. Vanessa stopped laughing. She clutched her paralyzed shoulder, wincing. "What?" "The rims are wrong," I said, my voice rising, gaining strength with every syllable. I stood up. "And that's not a fuel fire. That's a battery combustion. That's an electric G-Wagon. Teos drives a V8. He hates electric cars. He says they don't growl." I looked down at her. "He's not dead." Vanessa's face twisted. "My team said." "Your team lied," I snapped. "Or they missed. Or, more likely, Teos fed them a decoy and they swallowed it whole because they're as sloppy as you are." I didn't wait for her response. I didn't have time for her anymore. She was a ghost from my past. I had a future to save. I ripped the silk sash from my dress, kicked her legs apart, and tied her ankles to the heavy conduit pipe of the HVAC unit. "You're not going anywhere," I hissed, tightening the knot until she gasped. "The police will be here in 10 minutes. Enjoy the view." I ran for the elevator. My bare feet slapped against the cold concrete. I didn't feel the cold. I felt fire. I jammed the button for the lobby. My phone buzzed again. Not a text this time. A call. "Husband." I answered it so fast I almost cracked the screen. "Teos, I'm okay." His voice came through, rough, winded, surrounded by the sound of sirens and wind. The driver tried to swerve us into the barrier. I put a bullet in the tire before he could. We flipped, but the armor held. "I'm out." "I knew it," I sobbed, relief washing over me like rain. "I knew those rims were tacky." "What?" "Never mind. Where are you?" "I'm 3 minutes from the house," he said. The engine of whatever car he had commandeered was roaring. "Imelda, they have mother. They have the house locked down. I'm going in." "Not without me," I said, the elevator doors opening to the chaos of the lobby. People were screaming, running. I ignored them. I sprinted toward the valet stand. "I'm taking the Porsche." "Imelda, stay back. It's a kill zone." "It's my house, Teos. My children are in there." I grabbed the keys from a terrified valet who didn't argue with a barefoot woman in a torn emerald gown holding a phone like a weapon. I'm coming, and I have an idea. An idea? I designed the smart home integration, remember? I jumped into the Porsche 911 GT3. If Dr. Lim thinks he controls that house, he's about to learn why you don't mess with an engineer. I revved the engine. Don't breach until I tell you. I'm going to open the door. I drove like a maniac. I wove through traffic, ran red lights, drifting around corners with a precision I didn't know I possessed. Underdog mastery isn't just about book smarts. It's about applying physics to desperation. 10 minutes later, I screeched to a halt at the bottom of our driveway. Toes was there, crouching behind his commandeered sedan. He had a bloodied bandage around his head, his tuxedo jacket gone, his white shirt stained with oil and blood. He looked terrifying. He looked beautiful. He saw me and ran over, checking me for injuries. You're bleeding. Paper cut. I lied, though my feet were shredded. What's the situation? Lim has 6 mercenaries inside. They're holding Mother in the living room. They're demanding the encryption keys to the offshore accounts. They haven't found the twins yet, but they're tearing the house apart. Okay. I pulled out my phone. Here's the plan. You go to the back entrance. The kitchen door. It's reinforced steel, Imelda. I can't kick it down. You won't have to. I tapped my screen, accessing the home automation app. In 30 seconds, I'm going to trigger the party mode protocol. TOS blinked. Party mode. It's a preset I made for New Year's, I explained rapidly. Strobe lights at maximum frequency. Music at 100 decibels. And I'm overriding the fire suppression system to release the halon gas in the living room only. Halon sucks the oxygen out of the room, TOS said. You'll kill Mother. No. I showed him the schematic. I'm venting the HVAC in the center of the room where she's tied up. The gas will create a perimeter. The mercenaries will pass out or choke. Mother will be in the eye of the storm. But we only have about 2 minutes before the levels get toxic for everyone. You need to get in, grab her, and get out. And the twins. I'm locking the nursery down. Magnetic seals. Nothing gets in or out until I scan my retina. TOS looked at me. The admiration in his eyes was hotter than the burning car. You are terrifying. I'm a mother, I said grimly. Same thing. Go. He sprinted into the darkness. I waited, watching the timer on my phone. 3, 2, 1, execute. From the driveway, I saw the house explode with light. Strobes flashed through the windows like a disco in hell. Even from here, I could hear the bass thumping. Mozart's Requiem. Dubstep remix. I have eclectic taste. I didn't wait. I ran toward the front door. Inside, it was chaos. The strobe lights were disorienting, flashing at a rate designed to induce nausea. The music was deafening. Mercenaries were stumbling around, clutching their heads, unable to see or hear. I slipped on a pair of sunglasses I found in the foyer console, my driving shades, to cut the glare. Excuse me, I shouted over the bass drop, grabbing a heavy crystal vase. A mercenary turned toward me, blinking blindly. I smashed the vase over his head. He crumpled. That was Ming Dynasty, I muttered. Put it on your tab. I moved toward the living room. The halon gas was hissing, creating a white fog around the perimeter. In the center, Madame Yeojin was coughing, her eyes watering, but she was alert. Dr. Lim was on his knees trying to crawl out of the fog, gasping. TOS burst through the kitchen door. He was a shadow in the strobe lights. He moved with brutal efficiency. 2 punches, a sweep, a disarm. The mercenaries didn't stand a chance. He was the protective powerhouse in his element, violence as an art form. He reached Madame Yeojin, cutting her bonds with a knife he'd taken off a guard. He threw her over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes and ran toward the patio doors. Get her out, I screamed. I'm going for the twins. Imelda, he shouted back, but I was already running up the stairs. The nursery was on the second floor. I sprinted down the hallway, the strobe lights making everything look like stop-motion animation. I reached the door. The keypad was glowing red. Lockdown active. I leaned in for the retinal scan. Access denied. My heart stopped. What? I tried again. Access denied. No, no, no. I pounded on the door. June SEO. Yuna. Open the door. Mommy. Yuna's voice came from the other side, small and terrified. The bad man is in here. My blood turned to ice. One mercenary had made it upstairs before the lockdown. He was inside with them. Listen to me, Yuna, I said, pressing my forehead against the steel. Is he awake? He has a headache. Junesio's voice piped up. He's sitting on the floor holding his head. The lights are hurting him. Okay, baby, listen to me. You know the game we play? The floor is lava? Yes, the floor is lava, I said. My voice steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. I need you to climb onto the bookshelf. Both of you. High up. Can you do that? Yes, they chorused. Do it now. I waited 5 seconds. Are you up? Yes. I pulled my phone out. I bypassed the safety protocols on the nursery smart window. TOS. I screamed into my comms. I still had the earbud in. TOS, are you outside? I'm with Mother. We're safe. Where are you? I'm blowing the nursery window, I said. Catch them. What? The door is jammed. There's a hostel inside. I'm blowing the glass. Catch your children. I didn't wait for his permission. I hit the command. Emergency vent/glass eject. A deafening boom shook the floor. The reinforced glass of the nursery window blasted outward into the garden. The pressure change sucked the air out of the room. The mercenary, disoriented and sitting on the floor, was pulled toward the window. He grabbed the frame, screaming, dangling over the rose bushes below. I overrode the door lock. It hissed open. I ran in. The room was windy, chaotic. The twins were clinging to the top of the bolted-down bookshelf, eyes wide but safe. The mercenary was trying to pull himself back in. I walked over to the window. I looked down at him. He looked up at me, eyes pleading. Please, he wheezed. You entered my children's room, I said coldly. You forfeited your right to mercy. I didn't push him. I just peeled his fingers off the ledge, one by one. He fell. It wasn't a long drop, just to the bushes, but he landed hard, groaning, surrounded by thorns. TOS was waiting for him at the bottom. I saw my husband knock him out with a single, efficient blow. I turned to the bookshelf. Okay, monkeys. Floor is safe. They scrambled down and launched themselves into my arms. I sank to the floor, burying my face in their necks, smelling their shampoo, their fear, their life. You broke the window, Junicio noted, pointing at the gaping hole. Daddy will fix it, I sobbed, laughing hysterically. Daddy will fix everything. Before we get to the emotional reunion that will melt your heart, smash that subscribe button. Like, share and comment to know what happens next. Seriously, if you don't like this, do you even believe in love? 10 minutes later, the police, the real police, led by a precinct captain TOS played golf with, arrived. They took Dr. Lim, the mercenaries, and the groaning man from the rose bushes away. We sat on the back of the ambulance. Me, TOS, the twins, and Madame Yeojin. We looked like a disaster. I was barefoot, covered in soot and blood. TOS was shirtless, his tuxedo pants ruined, bandages wrapped around his ribs. Madame Yeojin's perfect bun was unraveling, and she was holding an ice pack to her cheek. But we were alive. TOS held Junesio on one knee and Yuna on the other. He hadn't let go of them for 20 minutes. He kept smelling their hair, kissing their foreheads. You blew the window, he said to me, shaking his head. It was a structural weakness. I shrugged, leaning my head on his shoulder. I'll redesign it. You weaponized the strobe lights, Madame Yeojin said. She lowered the ice pack. She looked at me. Really looked at me. I underestimated you, Imelda. I thought you were soft. I am soft, I said, reaching out to take Teos's hand. That's why I fight so hard. To keep the soft things safe. Yeojin huffed. A sound that might have been a laugh. Soft. You paralyzed a woman on a roof and gassed a living room. You are many things, daughter-in-law, but soft isn't one of them. She reached into her pocket. Her vintage Chanel suit was singed and pulled out a ring. It wasn't just any ring. It was the Kong signet. The ring the boss wore. The ring Teos's father had worn. She tossed it to me. Caught it. It's too big for you, Yeojin said. But you've earned the right to wear it until your son is of age. You're not the background anymore. You're the consigliere. Teos looked at his mother, then at me. He smiled, a real, dazzling smile that reached his eyes. Consigliere Courtney has a nice ring to it. I prefer boss lady, I said, slipping the heavy gold ring onto my thumb. But we can workshop the title. Teos leaned in, ignoring the paramedics, the police, and his mother. He kissed me. Not a desperate goodbye kiss this time. Promise. I see you, he whispered against my lips. I see you, Imelda. And I will never look away again. The adrenaline of the rescue faded, replaced by the sterile hum of a police precinct interrogation room. This was the part the movie skipped. The cleanup. The explanations. The part where the underdog has to prove she didn't just get lucky, but that she owns the narrative. I sat across from Captain Miller. Teos was in the next room, likely being grilled about the unlicensed automatic weapons used to clear our living room. I wasn't worried about him. I was worried about the timeline. Mrs. Kong, Captain Miller sighed, tapping his pen on a stack of files. Let me get this straight. Your sister, who has been legally dead for 5 years, kidnapped your mother-in-law, hacked your smart home, and staged a siege because of sibling rivalry. It sounds petty when you say it like that, Captain, I said, my voice smooth, calm. I was still wearing the torn emerald dress, but I had wrapped myself in a precinct blanket like it was a royal cloak. Vanessa was mentally unstable. She suffered from a delusion that I had stolen her life. It's a tragic, domestic dispute. A domestic dispute involving halon gas and military-grade paralytics? Miller raised an eyebrow. The forensic report on the roof is interesting. You paralyzed her with a hairpin. Self-defense is an art form, Captain. I leaned forward. And as for the gas, I'm a chemist. I have a permit for my lab. The gas was a fire suppression system malfunctioning during the chaos. A fortunate accident that saved my family. Miller looked at me. He knew I was lying about the accident. He knew Teos ran the underworld. But he also knew that without the Kong family's donations to the Police Benevolent Fund, the precinct would be running on typewriters. And the mercenary in the rose bushes? He fell, I said simply. Gravity is a harsh mistress. Miller stared at me for a long moment. Then he closed the file. Your sister is in the prison infirmary. The feds are taking jurisdiction because of the drug manufacturing charges. You're free to go, Mrs. Kong. But maybe keep the domestic disputes to a minimum. I'll do my best, I smiled. But you know how family reunions can be. I walked out of that room not as a victim, but as the architect of our freedom. Teos was waiting for me in the hallway. He looked exhausted, battered, and absolutely magnetic. You handled Miller? He asked, taking my hand. Miller is a bureaucrat, I said, resting my head on his shoulder as we walked toward the exit. I gave him a narrative he can sell to the press. Tragic sister, heroic family. The headlines will write themselves. Remind me never to play poker with you, Teos murmured. You can't afford it, I teased. But as we stepped into the cool night air, the reality of what came next hit us. The war was over, but the reconstruction was just beginning. We had a broken house, traumatized children, and a marriage that had been forged in crisis but needed to survive the peace. And that brought us to the boardroom. 2 weeks later, the Kong Syndicate, or as we legally called it, Kong Logistics and Holdings, held its quarterly board meeting. Usually, this was a room full of old men in gray suits smoking cigars and nodding at TOS. Today, the atmosphere was different. Tension vibrated in the air like a plucked violin string. TOS sat at the head of the table. I sat at his right hand. "Gentlemen," TOS began, his voice deep and authoritative. "We have some restructuring to discuss. As you know, the attempted hostile takeover by the Vance faction has been neutralized." Neutralized? A man named Director Choi scoffed. He was 60, arrogant, and had always looked at me like I was a waitress. "We lost the shipping lanes in Savannah. Our stocks took a hit. And now we hear rumors that your wife is involving herself in operational decisions." He said the word wife like it was a slur. TOS's jaw tightened. The protective powerhouse was ready to snap. "Imelda isn't just involving herself. She is." I placed a hand on TOS's arm. Softly. I didn't need him to fight this battle. This was Underdog Mastery 101. Let them underestimate you, then drop the hammer. "Director Choi," I said, my voice pleasant, conversational. "I understand your concern. The Savannah lanes are indeed compromised. The Vance faction burned the contacts." "Exactly," Choi sneered. "So why is the homemaker speaking on this?" "Because the homemaker," I said, standing up and walking to the display screen, "spent the last 3 years analyzing the soil composition and agricultural yields of the Savannah Port Authority land." I tapped the screen. A map appeared. "While you were busy mourning the lost shipping lanes, I noticed a discrepancy in the customs manifests. The Savannah port is under federal investigation for a biohazard leak. If we had kept those lanes, our ships would be impounded right now." The room went silent. "I rerouted our logistics to Charleston 4 days before the raid," I continued, swiping to the next slide. "It cost us a premium in fuel, but it saved us $300 million in seized assets. Furthermore, I used the loss in Savannah to file an insurance claim that covers the cost of the reroute, plus a 15% profit margin." I turned to look at Choi. "So, in effect, Director, I didn't lose the lanes. I sold a burning building to the insurance company before the match was even lit." Choi's mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked at TOS. TOS was leaning back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "She's good with numbers, Choi. I'd listen if I were you. Now," I sat back down, smoothing my skirt. "Does anyone else have an objection to my presence? Or can we discuss how we're going to launder the insurance payout through the new pharmaceutical wing I'm establishing?" "Pharmaceutical wing?" another director asked, intrigued. "Legitimate pharmaceuticals," I clarified. "My sister was a genius, but she was sloppy. I've reverse-engineered her non-narcotic patents. We're going to sell pain management solutions, not drugs. It's legal, it's profitable, and it gets the DEA off our backs." By the end of the meeting, the old guard wasn't just listening. They were taking notes. As we left the building, TOS pulled me into the elevator. He didn't wait for the doors to close before he pinned me against the wall. "You are unbearably sexy when you talk about insurance fraud," he growled. "It's not fraud, darling," I whispered, straightening his tie. "It's creative accounting. There's a difference." "I don't care." He kissed my neck. "I'm taking you to dinner. No kids. No guards. Just us. And the board. The board is terrified of you," he laughed. "You're the new boss. I'm just the muscle. Don't sell yourself short," I said, looking into his eyes. "You're the king. I'm just the one who makes sure the crown doesn't slip. But domestic bliss is harder than corporate takeovers. Learning to run a business was easy. Learning to be a family? That was the real work." Saturday morning. The pancake incident was a distant memory, but we had graduated to the bike riding debacle. Junasio refused to take the training wheels off his bicycle. He was convinced gravity was a personal enemy. It's physics, Dad, he yelled, clinging to a tree in the park. If I lean, I fall. Newton's first law. Taoes stood on the grass, hands on his hips. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, his tattoos visible on his arms. The other moms in the park were staring. I didn't blame them. Junasio, Taoes said patiently. Momentum keeps you up. You just have to trust the speed. Trust is not a variable, Junasio shouted back. I sat on the bench, laughing behind my sunglasses. You could help, Taoes called out to me. I'm supervising, I called back. Management role. Taoes shook his head, then knelt in front of our son. He didn't bark orders. He didn't intimidate. He did something I had never seen him do before the poisoning. He became vulnerable. Junasio, he said quietly, so only we could hear. Do you know why I'm good at fighting? Junasio sniffled. Because you're strong? No, Taoes said. Because I learned how to fall without getting hurt. You're going to fall, son. That's part of it. But I promise I will always be right there to pick you up. Okay? Junasio looked at him. Promise. Blood oath. Taoes said solemnly. Junasio got back on the bike. He pedaled. He wobbled. He fell. Taoes caught him before he hit the ground. They tried again. And again. And on the fifth try, Junasio was flying. I watched them. The lethal crime lord cheering like a maniac as his son did a wobbly circle around a fountain. And I realized that this was the real victory. The happiness I never saw coming. Taoes wasn't just protecting us anymore. He was letting us live. 6 months later. The Meridian Steakhouse. Private dining room. The same table. The geometry had changed. Taoes sat at the head. But I didn't sit on the left, 18 inches away. I sat at the other head of the table directly opposite him. Equal. Madame Yeojin sat on the side, sipping her tea, looking content. The waiter approached, nervous. The wine list, sir? Taoes didn't look at it. He looked at me. My wife will choose. She has the better palate. I smiled, taking the leather-bound book. We'll skip the Bordeaux tonight, I think. Let's go with the Cabernet. And bring 2 glasses. But before you pour, I pulled a small, sleek device from my purse. A portable spectrometer I had designed. I'm going to need to test the vintage. The waiter looked terrified. Of course, madam. Taoes chuckled. The sound was rich, deep, and frequent these days. You're scaring him. Good. I winked. Fear keeps them honest. How was the meeting with the Busan Syndicate? He asked, cutting his steak, and then reaching across to cut mine, a habit he had developed. Acts of service. They agreed to the new terms, I said, after I explained that our shipping containers now have biometric locks that release tear gas if tampered with. They decided it was cheaper to pay the tariff than to buy gas masks. Brilliant, he murmured. And how was the PDA meeting? I asked. Taoes sighed, putting down his fork. Brutal. The bake sale politics are more cutthroat than the triad. Mrs. Henderson tried to ban Junasio's cupcakes because they had aggressive sprinkles. I had to negotiate. Negotiate? Yeojin asked, raising an eyebrow. Did you threaten her? I donated a new scoreboard to the gym, Taoes grinned. Junasio's cupcakes are now the official snack of the soccer team. We laughed. It was a warm, easy sound. I looked at him, the deaf king, the protective powerhouse. He wasn't cold anymore. He was vibrant. He was a father who baked badly, a husband who listened, and a partner who trusted me with his life. And me? I wasn't the invisible woman. I was Imelda Courtney Kong, mother, genius, survivor. I raised my glass. To the underdogs, I said softly. Taoes raised his eyes locked onto mine, burning with a love that had been forged in fire and poison. To the ones who master the game. We clinked glasses. The crystal sang a clear, perfect note. I drank. The wine was rich, complex, and completely poison-free. But just in case, I had the antidote in my purse. The world sees a crime lord and his trophy wife. They see a picture-perfect family dining in luxury. They don't see the scars under the silk. They don't see the spectrometer in the purse. They don't know that the woman smiling over her wine glass is the most dangerous person in the room. And that's exactly how I like it. Being invisible was a curse. Being underestimated? That's a superpower. They say behind every great man is a woman. That's a lie. We're not behind them. We're beside them, checking the exits, reading the fine print, and occasionally, tasting the wine. We are the shock absorbers, the strategists, the ones who turn invisibility into invincibility. So the next time you feel overlooked, the next time you feel like the background character in someone else's movie, remember Imelda Courtney. And remember that the most dangerous thing in the world isn't a man with a gun. It's a woman with a plan. This is Afro-Soul Love Tales. If you believe in the power of the underdog, if you believe that love is worth fighting for, even if you have to use a little poison to wake it up, then smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment below. What's your superpower? Are you the shield or the sword? And don't forget to hit the bell, because in this family, you never know who's coming to dinner next.